Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone.
Chased down by Beal in the corner for three, gets fouled and hits.
Welcome to DC.
Walker tied him out.
You know where you're at, the USA cap. You're taking it slightly, I'm taking it slightly. Now how you gon' act on you gon' be right back. When we gon' be right here, we gon' be right here. We ain't going nowhere. Welcome to DC.
What's good, everyone? It's your boy Natsu with another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone. And I know for certain that this is going to be the most contentious of the 3 videos I'm uploading this week, or at least before the training camp recaps. But look, I know us Washington football fans have not been able to watch great quarterback play in DC too often. I get it. I really do. And hence, we become enthralled with any guy that brings even spurts of solid quarterback play here, whether it be an RG3 in 2012, whether it be a Kirk Cousins, whether it be even Taylor Heineke last year, or really going into the 2021 playoffs as well. But that does not mean that we should overrate and or be satisfied with this quarterback play just because we don't know any better. That is my biggest gripe right now with the fan base, at least after Abdullah's video was recorded and uploaded and posted on our Instagram page. Abdullah came out with a video over the weekend claiming that Kirk should not have been let go by Washington and that effectively we did him wrong. Bro, no. This team has made very few smart decisions in my lifetime, in many of our lifetimes. But letting go of Kirk is one of the good moves that this team has made. There was a problem, though, with the situation that I'll mention a little bit later, which might lead you into thinking that letting go of Kirk was not a good move. But honestly, man, it was. Because everybody loves talking about Kirk's stats. Oh my gosh, he's putting up 4,000 plus yards. He's putting up 25, 30 plus touchdowns. He's putting up so few interceptions. But in my opinion, he's the NFL's version of a player that we know very well here, an NBA player, Bradley Beal. He's a solid quarterback, probably in the 14 to 16 range at quarterback right now. An opinion that's backed by a lot of independent news outlets out there. But again, his stats are inflated largely because of the number of times his teams have to come back in games at the end of games and just throw the ball down the field. And again, that helps inflate his stats, and that leads him to having the type of stats that you see right now, or at least over the last couple of years. And when it matters most, honestly, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people, this guy's just not a winner. He's just not a winner. Oh, everybody remembers the Washington. You like that game, the game that was sort of what was in Abdullah's narrative, right? Around how, we got to applaud Kirk Cousins for what he did. Oh my gosh, it was an honor to see him play. No, everybody fails to bring up the Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie interception that he had in 2016 against Giants backups. They were resting their starters. They already made the playoffs. I believe they won the NFC East that year, right? They were 10-6. Or at least going into that game, I believe they were 9-6. Against backups. With the chance to get into the playoffs as a wild card team. This man threw an interception against Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie in 2016. And then obviously, he's also had many other lowlights in his career late in games. Against Atlanta, he had that interception in overtime. See, I don't forget these type of plays. I don't know why people forget these type of plays. Because of how our quarterback position has been since Kirk Cousins has left? Okay, I'll get to that a little bit later. But he was brought into Minnesota to elevate them, right? From the NFC Championship heights in 2017 that they got with one Case Keenum, of all people, to even further than that. The Vikings dished out a 3-year, $84 million guaranteed contract, only for the Vikings to mire in mediocrity since Kirk Cousins has left Washington. I mean, his contract is pretty much, it's not just the fact that, he puts up stats but falls short late in games. It's also the fact that he was paid all that money to do that very thing, because that has prohibited the Vikings from retaining some of their players, from adding some players into their group, and elevating their team overall, right? And then people love saying, oh, well, if Kirk had Washington's defense to work with over the last few years, we could have finally had a defense that paired alongside Kirk could get us further than the 2014, 2018 ways or situation when our offense was our only reason to stay in games. That's another critique that a lot of people make, and I believe Abdullah might have made this in the video as well. Oh, you mean the same Washington defense that is ranked in yards per game given up 22nd, 27th, and 17th in 3 of the 4 seasons since Kirk's left? And this doesn't even account for the fact that if Kirk Cousins was here, because of the fact that he's a solid quarterback, but not a great quarterback and not a bad quarterback, we probably wouldn't have been bad enough to draft a Chase Young, who had a great 2020 rookie year and arguably was our best player overall in 2020 and what, in my opinion, led us to the playoffs in 2020. We probably wouldn't even have been able to have enough money to sign a Kendall Fuller, who had a pretty good 2020 season, especially early on. So, again, Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback, right? But he's also a quarterback that, the Vikings GM just now, I forget his last name. I think his first name is Kwesi. He's a new GM. Smart guy. He literally just said, I don't know how I feel about rolling with Kirk Cousins for seasons to come. I don't know about how I feel about that. And he just got to his position. Doesn't that tell you how, I guess, the NFL views Kirk Cousins, how his own team views Kirk Cousins? Again, Kirk Cousins is a solid player. I'm not doubting it, right? He's a solid player. Again, he's in that 14 to 16 range. But in my opinion, having him in DC would have just led to more mediocrity, first and foremost. And also paying him that contract would have, in my opinion, depleted this team, not allow this team to elevate past the 2014-2018 heights once again. And it just would have been great. It would have been great. And we played the franchise tag game with him. I think the biggest problem with the Kirk Cousins situation is that, one, we did not trade him earlier, which I know a lot of fans believe, and I also believe that. I feel like we should have traded him earlier, gotten back at least some draft compensation for Kirk Cousins instead of just letting him leave DC without anything in return. And the second thing is, the team didn't adequately replace Kirk Cousins via the draft or via free agency. And you can't just say, that's because it's hard to replace a Kirk Cousins. Okay, a 14 to 16 quarterback in this league, I guess Kirk Cousins was kind of hard to replace. But at the end of the day, I feel like the team could have made a better effort to get at Matthew Stafford. Everybody loves to talk about, he was already going to LA. It was out of our hands. But if we gave up more draft capital, you think Matt Stafford would have been here in DC? Or even besides at Matt Stafford, I feel like we could have done more in the free agency market via trade, or even via the draft. Davis Mills fell in the second round, and I know a lot of people out there can be like, Davis Mills, he's not that good. He had a pretty good rookie season. He was arguably number 2 behind Mac Jones last year in terms of rookie quarterbacks. We could have done more, guys. We could have done more. Kirk Cousins himself was a 4th round pick. We could have done more to replace Kirk Cousins, and also we could have done more to trade him before he ultimately left DC. But the fact that he's not here in DC anymore, guys, wake up. It's not a huge problem. I didn't even mention this, but the last 2 years, he's literally had about the same record that we've had, even with all the turmoil, all the off-the-field stuff that we've had. Quarterback situation being crazy. Injuries, COVID, everything Ron Rivera has had to go through. We've had literally about the same record. Last year, the Vikings won 8 games. We won 7 games. The year before that, I believe we both won 7 games. And again, in the 4 years that he's left DC, he's only taken the Vikings once to the playoffs. Once to the playoffs in 4 years. Okay, and kudos to him. He did that. Okay, but what about 3 of the other 4 years? Again, the Vikings have literally had. I checked the Vikings record, just because I want to see how Kirk's doing and all that, and they literally have the same record as us more often than not over the last 4 years. Even with all the controversies this team has been mired in, the name change, we all know it. I don't have to go through this again. And then this gets me to Carson Wentz. All right, you guys have been seeing me hint at my doubts of Carson Wentz throughout the offseason. And in my opinion, Carson Wentz last year is another quarterback where stats don't show the full picture of how mediocre he was as a quarterback last year for the Indianapolis Colts. And everybody loves to talk about how, it was a vaccine thing that essentially was the reason why he's no longer in Indy. That might have been a contributor, but guys, think about it this way. If he was that good on the field, if he was that good, the Colts would have kept him. I mean, we've seen NFL teams, for much more serious allegations, much more serious situations, retain their quarterbacks, right? Just because their quarterbacks are super talented, or trade for a quarterback and give him $230 million in guaranteed money. We've seen that situation before. So don't tell me it's just the vaccine situation. It's what he showed on the field, especially, everybody, let's talk about the 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, right? That Carson Wentz put up. But again, the last 2 games, I hate to sound like a broken record, but the last 2 games against the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Las Vegas Raiders, Carson Wentz wet the bed. For most of the season, he was not relied upon, right, to carry the Indianapolis Colts to wins because of the fact that he had arguably the NFL's best offensive weapon in Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. And for as much as people love to say Michael Pittman Jr. isn't Terry McLaurin, and I agree with you, Michael Pittman Jr. is still a wide receiver 1. I think he's going to do some great things with Matt Ryan at quarterback. I think the Colts are going to make the playoffs with Matt Ryan at quarterback. He had those 2 guys, right? But Jonathan Taylor especially. The Indianapolis Colts asked Carson Wentz to do the bare minimum last year. The bare minimum, right? The bare minimum. And he still found a way to screw things up the last 2 weeks of the season. And everybody let's talk about, it was the defense. It was the rushing game. Jonathan Taylor wasn't as effective the last 2 weeks of the season as he was earlier in the season. Well, Jonathan Taylor was super effective for most of the season, and he was the reason why the Colts led the Colts to wins, right? So once it was on Carson Wentz's shoulders to lead the Colts to wins, it didn't work out. And you're telling me it won't be like that in DC? You're telling me there won't be moments where Carson Wentz will be relied upon to will our team to wins in DC? Especially with all the people out there who are predicting 10, 11 plus wins for us? And you guys also have to remember this, and a lot of people forget this. In 2020, the Indianapolis Colts were 11-5. 11-5. And about to retire. We talk about noodle arm with Taylor Heineke. Noodle arm at that point. Shot arm at that point. Phillip Rivers, 39 years old, 11-5. And everybody, let's talk about, the Indianapolis Colts weren't as good last year as, some people made them out to be. They literally had the same roster, essentially, in 2020. Minus an injury here and there. A same roster, if not worse, because they had a rookie year Jonathan Taylor, a rookie year Michael Pittman Jr. They went 11-5. Carson Wentz was brought in to elevate the team. Sounds very familiar with the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. Was brought in to elevate the team. And he got them not just around the same mark that they were in 2020, 2 less wins than they had in 2020. And the Wentz trade to Washington was made on March 9th, right? March 9th, 2022. On March 8th, everybody was clowning Carson Wentz. Everybody was on Carson Wentz is not a super effective quarterback in the Washington fan base. And you know what changed? The fact that he's on our team. And I'm sorry, guys, as a realistic fan in terms of seeing where this team is, projecting where this team is going to go, I just can't view Carson Wentz through my burgundy and gold glasses because of the fact that, again, it's definitely worrisome that the Colts got rid of him, even with the situation being, in my opinion, as great as it was. Not just with the offensive guys. I mean, the defense was I believe top 10 in points allowed. Top 10 in points allowed. You also had Frank Reich, who he catered his entire offense around Carson Wentz, and they still couldn't make the playoffs last year. And now people in the Washington fan base are hyping him up to lead us to 11 wins, 11 plus wins. I don't know where that's coming from. I really don't. Again, Wentz, like Kirk, solid quarterbacks. They put up the stats, especially last year, right? They put up the stats. You can't really hate them. I think all the rankings out there of Carson Wentz being lower than Justin Fields, or guys along that caliber of quarterback is just asinine, right? He's not that bad of a quarterback. But I definitely think Kirk and Carson Wentz are in the same range. I would say Kirk is slightly better, right? But they're in the same range where they're very solid quarterbacks. They'll put up the stats. They'll do some good things on the field. But at the end of the day, being a quarterback, 50% of the game is what lies between the ears. And I just don't think Carson Wentz has the right stuff between the ears to lead us to that 11-plus win mark that a lot of fans, I don't know where or how, think we'll get to this season after 2 consecutive 7-win seasons. And And then there's another thing. Oh, and I know Abdullah mentioned this in his video. Man, Carson Wentz is our best quarterback since Kirk Cousins, bro. Like, Nazi, like, you gotta be more optimistic. So? Our best quarterback since Kirk Cousins? That's not saying much. Alex Smith, rest in peace to Wayne Haskins, Case Keenum, Kyle Allen, Garrett Gilbert, Taylor Heineke. I mean, bless his heart, he did some good things for us, but XFL backup that we turned into a starter. So? Like, that's not saying much whatsoever. And at that point, once we start being complacent with mediocrity at the quarterback position, as fans, as Washington fans, we lose. We lose. That's when we start to accept mediocrity from this team and not expect anything more. And I think that's a terrible mindset to have, like, as a fan of this team. Right? I respect all of you guys as fans, and I respect all you guys who are hyping up Carson Wentz, but I have my doubts of Carson Wentz. And, you know, I sort of touched on them in this video, but I touched on them throughout the offseason, honestly. And I just think, you know, you got to tread lightly as Commanders fans, right? As my fellow Commanders fans, we got to tread lightly because while Wentz, yes, will do some good things for us. And you've heard this from many people, right, throughout the offseason. He will do some good things for us. He'll have some backbreaking plays. And that's the reason why I have us going 9-8 this season, right? Like, I know we have talent on offense. I know we have talent on defense. But at the end of the day, it's all about the quarterback position. And while I'm rooting for Carson Wentz, while I think all the off-the-field concerns are overblown, I think he's just maybe too Christian for a lot of people out there. And I really don't understand that. I admire how devout he is to his faith. My analysis is strictly about on the field and what he brought to the table really the last couple of years, right? Another thing I didn't even mention. Yes, okay, he was healthy for 17 games last year, or he started 17 games last year. He was also had 2 sprained ankles, and I think a lot of people forget that before last season, one of his biggest concerns outside of his on-the-field play was injuries, right, and him not being able to stay healthy. So I think that's something to consider, right? I think, you know, I don't want this to happen, but we could see some Taylor Heineke this year. Could see a lot of Taylor Heineke this year, right, if Carson Wentz goes down with an injury, God forbid. But, like, man, there's just a lot of things that are adding up to the fact that I don't understand why a lot of people are predicting 10, 11-plus wins with Carson Wentz. And secondly, I don't understand why a lot of people are hyping up Carson Wentz just because he's on our team, right? You can be a fan of him because he's on our team, but to say that, he's a great quarterback, like, guys, like, I cannot tell you how Twitter was, like, literally after the Colts ended their season, right? Because everybody remembers Carson Wentz as the Eagles quarterback, so a lot of people in the Commanders fan base were bashing him or criticizing him, right? Just for how the Colts season turned out and stuff. And bro, it's just crazy to see how literally a couple months later, a lot of fans have talked themselves into Carson Wentz. I guess I'm one of the few who have not and have my doubts. And again, while I hope he proves me wrong, I want him to prove me wrong. I want us to get to a Super Bowl. I want us to win a bunch of games. I think it's fair to have my doubts, and it's also fair to say, Abdullah, bro, respectfully, we should not accept mediocrity at quarterback. We should not be thanking Kirk Cousins for his efforts here in DC just because he got us to the 7-8 win mark for multiple seasons, right? I mean, I think that there is something to say about that, given all even back then, our controversies off the field and stuff, and I don't know, just the constant turmoil that surrounded this team. I think, again, I said this before and I'll say it again. Once we start expecting mediocrity from this team, especially at the quarterback position, that's where we fail. And this team gets comfortable. I mean, it already is comfortable accepting it, but it gets even more comfortable. And that's what prevents us to getting part of the reason, right? There's definitely other reasons as well. Part of the reason why that prevents us to getting to where we want to be, which is a Super Bowl contender, which is a Super Bowl champion, right? For the first time in 30 years. So that's my thoughts on both Abdullah's video, on Kirk Cousins, on Carson Wentz, and what he can bring to us. Again, I think we'll go 9-8, but I am not hyping up Carson Wentz just because he's on our team, because I know what he brings. I've seen plenty of Carson Wentz games, and that's that. But I know this is going to be a sort of controversial video, guys. Please make sure to comment your thoughts on this, and yeah, if you can, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the DMVSportsZone channel. We'd like to post fire content like this as much as possible. Also, go follow our Twitter page at DMVSportsZone, Instagram page, all lowercase DMVSportsZone, and our TikTok at DMVSportsZone as well. It's been a long, I don't know what you want to call it, late night, early morning for me, but I appreciate all the love and support over the last couple of weeks. And guys, last year during training camp was when we started to get busy on this channel, started to get a lot more support, and hopefully we'll give you guys a lot of great content that you deserve. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a great Wednesday or Thursday, whenever this video comes out, and see you on the next one.